Growing up with a growing understanding speech pathology. Conversations about children's development that will support you through your parenting journey.
Hi, I'm Lauren from A Growing Understanding, and welcome to the Growing Up podcast. This is where we have real and practical conversations about children's communication and feeding development, helping parents to feel supported, informed, and empowered. Each episode, I'll sit down with one of our amazing team members to share insights, answer some common questions, and give you some useful strategies that you can take into everyday life. So whether you're wondering if your child may need some support or looking for some tips to help their progress, or perhaps you might like to better understand their journey, this podcast is here to help. If this sounds like it may be helpful, make sure to follow along and let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Growing Up with a Growing Understanding. This is a podcast where we are speaking to parents and carers of children who may have communication and feeding difficulties, or you may just be interested in communication and feeding difficulties. And we're here to offer some advice and some information that may be relevant for you and your family. Today, I am once again joined by Jamie. Hi, Jamie.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for chatting with me again. So Jamie is one of our speech pathologists and one of our clinical leads. And on the back of our last podcast that we did, which we were talking about AAC and different ways of communicating, and we started to talk off air about styles of communication. So last time we were talking about ways of communicating and how much we can rely on non-verbal communication as a way of communicating, as an alternative way of communicating. And we were talking about different styles, and we thought that this would be something that might be helpful to share to some of the people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to talk, so I think we chatted for a long time off air about this, and then it turned into let's turn the recording back on. So absolutely. So we should have just kept it recording the last time when we were having the off-air conversation. But essentially, what we were talking about, and it's something that I feel like I speak to families, particularly children who aren't yet talking, and that early communication. We talk about the how and the why of the communicating. So the how is really using different forms of communication. It could be facial expression, or it could be using words, or it might be using pictures, or a communication system. So that's the how. Yeah. The why children communicate, there's lots of different reasons, and we talk about some of those reasons being to protest and to comment or to ask questions or to greet. So there might be lots of reasons why children communicate. And I think both of those things, the how and the why children communicate, leads and is related to this idea of communication style. So we know that everyone, adults and children, have different styles of communicating, and that can impact how often you are communicating, how readily you communicate, whether you're initiating and whether you're responding, and the frequency of that, but also how you do that as well. So I think that that's some of the things that we touched on initially, but I think the extension from that was also about our different styles of communication. As adults as well, like we work with kids, but also everyone has a different communication style generally. Yeah.
So one of the things that we were talking about and that we wanted to share is, so I am a verbal processor. So one of the ways that I respond to people is by I love to verbally communicate. So it's really helpful for me to pick up the phone and to talk to someone, or to process information by talking it through. And you and I work together, but you process that information differently, and you don't necessarily respond, and your style is not necessarily the same as mine, right?
No, I hate phone calls. I yeah, I guess I do prefer verbal. I like face-to-face conversations and verbal conversations as well. But will I initiate a phone call? Probably not. Will I answer a phone call if you called me? Yeah, I would answer it. But would I
if I called you?
Would I pick it up? Maybe. But would I go, oh, I should call that person and talk about that? Probably not. I guess my communication style is, or I'm thinking about things like, oh, they could be busy, or what's this or what's that. I might message them first and see if they're free and then do that. Probably a bit of people pleaser in me as well thrown in. But yeah, I would maybe message someone first or try and catch them face to face. To talk it out. Or I am guilty of writing really, really, really long blurbs of very detailed information as well. So that written kind of communication style too.
And also for me, I find it really, my brain capacity to read long text of information and then to be able to write something back, it takes a lot of the cognitive load and pressure for me. So it's really challenging. And I think the reason why we're talking about the different styles is because in working in a team as adults and as working with families and children with lots of communication style, we have to adapt and we have to be flexible, right? So you said, when I call you, you are likely to respond and to pick up. You may not like it, as your preferred communication style because you wouldn't initiate it yourself, but you will respond and you'll adapt. Likewise, when you send me a really long message to digest, I don't like it, and it's not my preferred communication style, but I adapt and I respond. And I think that's something that we share with our families in, being aware of what their child's communication styles may be. How likely are they to start an interaction and how likely are they to respond? So we've got some children who are really social, and so they really readily start interactions and they'll respond really quickly. But we've got other children who may be a little bit more reluctant, so they may not initiate, but if they get asked a question or if they're if they're required to make a response, that they will and they'll follow through with that. So I think increasing the parents' awareness of communication style can be one step towards helping the child and the family around communication difficulties is by increasing that awareness a little bit, and being aware of your own communication style preferences as well.
Yeah, I think, I guess what sparked it for us into coming on here and discussing it was that, well, if we're acknowledging that we have different communication styles, then every single parent that we work with would have different ways that they like to process and communicate. And then that interaction between the parent and the child would look different no matter what. And it did snowball a little bit. But I guess we are also communication specialists, so it's kind of our job, right, to, yes, work on those, the how and the why that you were talking about, but also how do we achieve those goals? And if we're just doing a standard, I don't know, if it doesn't work for that parent, that communication style, if we're just saying, this is what you got to do this week and that verbal processing doesn't work for that family, then they're less likely to make progress with those how and why goals. And so, I guess that brings back to why it was kind of important for us to kind of have this conversation and how that is important in our role as well to accommodate for that, the needs of everyone we work with, the parent and the child, and then how they communicate with each other too.
And, part of that process, for me, it's been improving my own awareness of that communication style as well for myself. And so then I think the next step when we're working with families is also to ask the questions, be curious and explore their communication preferences and their communication styles as well. Just, checking in with them and saying, is it helpful to talk this through? Can I support you by putting this in writing? Or do you like some time to process this, and do you want me to check in with you a few days afterwards? Or, are you likely to reach out to me, or do you prefer me to reach out to you? Exploring some of the ideas that are related to communication style and helping families to have an understanding about because it's not something that you necessarily think about, right? It is
or really talk about. Like, I don't even think with like friends that I even go, well, this is how I like to communicate. Like, I don't think we talk about it as generally. I don't know if that makes sense, but we don't really talk about it.
I give the example. So Em, our clinical director, so she will. So she sent me a message yesterday, and she asked me a question in there, and I replied and said, do you want me to write a reply, or do you want me to give you a phone call to chat it through? I knew that she wanted me to write a reply. I didn't want to, but we know each other's preferences through those talking and, talking it through and exploring it, which I think can be really helpful. The other thing that I was going to talk about is that communication styles for children, for adults, for everybody, it's not something that stays the same 24/7. So I think that there are some factors that influence your communication style at any given time. So I think that that's something to be aware of. And we've touched on the first reason and the first factor that can influence your communication style. And the first one is your communication partner. So who you're talking with and in the environment that you're in really can influence your preferred communication style. So, within the workplace, I might prefer to talk something through, but if I am talking with my teenagers, it might be via SMS or by text might be the preferred way of starting a conversation. It might also be their preferred way as well. But I think communication partners is one of those. Can you think of others that other factors that might impact upon
I definitely communication partners is probably a huge one. And just thinking about, I guess, with the kids that we work with, I so often get the whole they'll communicate really well with mum and dad at home, and they're using, full sentences and this and that. And then they get to preschool and there's not much happening. And so communication partner, absolutely, but then environment as well is another one that I was thinking about, but kind of both as well. So or they might feel comfortable with a small group of people, but then not a larger group of people, and you might have less access to language if there's other feelings creeping up like anxiety, or there's a lot of noise, or there's some sensory things happening in the room. So, I guess there's probably a lot of factors that come into it when thinking about how you communicate across different environments as well.
I think that preference for communication style also comes with your state, and you touched on some of it there in terms of how you might be feeling. So if you're really unwell, or if you haven't slept the night before, or if you're dysregulated, then your style of communication is going to be really different to what it was yesterday because of all of those other factors. So I think that state of how you are in a given day is certainly one of those factors that can influence your communication style and how you interact with others. And then the other thing that I was going to talk about is certainly some of the, if English is not your preferred first language, or, you know, that the language that you're speaking in can also play a factor too. And that kind of speaks to communication partners, but, and it speaks to communication difficulties. But if you aren't competent or confident in those, in that communication, or in that language, that can certainly, play a part in, your preferred style of communication too. So I think thinking about how likely you are and how likely a child is to initiate and respond to a interaction can give you lots of insights and about what your role is in an interaction, but also what the child's role is in that interaction. And that gives us lots of clues and lots of information that we can use to support a child's communication difficulties if we know those things.
Something that has come up a lot recently, I guess, with working with some of my clients and across the team as well, is that regulation piece. So is a child regulated, but what are their energy levels like? Did they have a not so great sleep last night? Like, we think about how we're feeling throughout the day and fluctuating capacity. So 1 week I might be able to get 100 speech sound repetitions with a client, but then next week their capacity is down because they had a bad sleep or whatever happened and they're feeling dysregulated. And that communication style is completely different. They might not want to engage or do the activity because there's so many other factors at play. And I think that's what I love trying to, I guess, get to the bottom of a little bit, or teach and educate about how the communication can look so different across every given day at different points in the day, just depending on what has happened, or, you know, and, you know, you always get that, sometimes you might get like a frustrated, but they could do this last week, but why can't they do that this week? And it's like, well, there's a lot of factors at play here that might, you know, impact that ability to communicate. And I think that regulation piece is key.
Most definitely. So in terms of, take home messages and actions that families can be thinking about, I think being curious about your own communication style, preferences, and being aware about that across different settings, you know, whether it's with your family versus with your therapists, with that, you know, with your child, where that shifts and that changes. So increasing your awareness around that, and then having those conversations with your speech pathologist about how you can use those communication preferences and styles to help your child's therapy, and also to be able to support you in this therapy process as well. So are there things that we can be doing to be able to help your child with some of those style preferences in mind? And then also, thinking about your child's, communication style and preferences and things too.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that I might ask or do in a session, like especially when you're like at the beginning of a client journey, so maybe meeting someone for the first time, might be like we'll run through a speech pathology plan and we try and collaborate with goals. And at that point, I'll be like, well, how do you prefer to, how would you prefer me to communicate with you? Is it through text or SMS or emails? But also like trying to understand, especially if a parent might be that more passive. I resonate heavily with being passive. You know, how do I get you to let me know if there's something that you want to change or tweak, or, you know, and I guess like trying to have that transparency at the beginning is really good, so you can set up a good, close therapeutic kind of relationship. But then obviously also thinking about the child and how do they like to communicate? How do you two communicate with each other? Is that different with dad, or is that different with siblings? And so, actually just obtaining that information from the get-go is really important to set you up for success.
Yeah, I love what you said, Jamie, in terms of it's that connection between yourself and your child that's really going to strengthen and support. But it's also that connection with you and your speech pathologist that can really help to be able to strengthen the therapeutic relationship, but ultimately to give you the support and skills and knowledge to be able to help your child's communication skills flourish, which is what we're all about. So thanks for diving in. I know that it's a really broad and unusual kind of perspective to be taking on communication, but really grateful to explore it. And hopefully it just gives some families some insights of some things to be thinking about as part of their communication therapy journey, and something that we may be able to increase that awareness of. And also just that I think one of our values is around respect. And so respect for different people's types of communication styles and preferences is something that we're really passionate about, as you can hear us as we're chatting about. Yeah.
I might be the speech pathologist who has the 4-year degree, and we work with communication, but actually you're the parent and you know the child the best. And so I don't know their communication style as well as you do because I'm just meeting you for the first time and I'm going to get to know that over time. But you're the professional here for that child. And so I will never be offended if someone is direct and says, well, this is how they communicate and that's not going to work for my child. Or, I just love that. And I'm more than happy for people to just tell me how it is and that's what's going to work because, the parents are the experts at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's that partnership, isn't it? And, it's not that one person and the person with the degree sits higher than another. It's that equal playing field because it's a partnership to be able to support the child. So, as I said, thanks for exploring this topic with me. And if you are listening and you have got any questions around communication style and communication preferences, these are things that we love to explore and talk through with you, particularly when it relates to your child and their communication therapy journey. So thanks, Jamie. Really appreciate you talking with me.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Growing Up with a Growing Understanding Speech Pathology. We love helping families navigate their parenting concerns and ensuring your child can grow and achieve. Please rate and review wherever you're listening so we can continue to grow together.